Happy New Year's, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I want to wish this awesome community a happy, healthy, successful 2025. It's January the 2nd, Dutch, and it's the first podcast of the year, and we do have a very special episode today, but we will talk about that in a second. But first, again, I want to wish everyone in this amazing community an amazing 2025. It's especially in gaming. It's gonna be a very, very special year, and we're gonna do an entire preview for 2025 in the next podcast, because today's podcast is something else. It's something different, something new, something we haven't done before. And to be frank, I haven't seen anyone do something similar before. Not saying that there isn't a podcast out there that has had the idea before us, but we are trying to do an interactive podcast, a podcast where everyone who is joining us, at least live here, is gonna be or can be a part if they choose to. It's not like you guys will come on camera or something like that. We'll explain what your part in the show is, but you will be a significant part of this podcast. And that's why we said it's an interactive podcast. And we'll explain what that means in a few minutes. But Dutch, I haven't welcomed you. How are you doing in 2025, my man?
Yes, I'm good. back to the grind. I'm back at work next week, so I'm still got a couple of days to chill out and game and go to the gym and relax. So I've managed to get a couple of games finished. I haven't managed to get through all of my backlog, but I have managed to get a couple done.
So what have you finished?
Space Marine 2.
Oh, nice. I just started it the other day.
Nice. And Indie. I finished Indie as well.
Awesome.
Those are my two finished so far. But I tell you what, I love the campaign for Space Marine 2 was fantastic. And I loved, to be fair, what I also loved was the CGI action sequences that they had, like these mini movie kind of scenes that they had throughout the game. And they've become a little bit more frequent towards the end, but they're more action-packed as well, and they're really enjoyable to watch. So yeah, that was awesome. And Indy, of course, fantastic. Voss is a brilliant a brilliant villain. It kind of goes right in line with the biggest and best villains in the Indy series, to be fair. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to do all the different mysteries and things like that, because of course when the credits roll in Indy, you can go back and revisit every place you've been to and do all the mysteries. So I'm going to do that as well. So thoroughly enjoyed both of those. Muted.
Sorry. So I'm still battling a little cough. That's why I'm going to mute myself occasionally. But yeah, I mean, I finished Indie like 3-4 days after its release. It was more or less directly after my surgery, and so I was lying in bed anyway, and I've been playing that really quickly, but I loved it. And you will hear about Indie and my thoughts probably a lot during the show, because we are going to evaluate what is are the best games of 2024 in this podcast. But I've just started with Space Marine 2. I'm like, I don't know, maybe 3-4 hours in now. And I'm having a blast, man. It's a very old school kind of game, you know, in the best sense possible. It reminds me a little bit about the feeling I had when I first played Gears. You know, it's not a cover shooter. That's not what I'm saying, but it's like
Definitely an all guns blazing shooter.
Yeah, it's an all guns blazing shooter and a lot of gore, and it's like these bro dude characters, and it's like it's fantastic, man. I'm having a blast with that game. So, but that's not what we're here for today. We are here to figure out what have been the best games of 2024. And we gave this a thought, and we've been thinking about this for a while now. How can we do that with the community? The initial ideas about just throwing polls out on Twitter, let the community decide, and then hand out a World of Gaming award or something like that. We thought this is not the way to do it. We love this community and the people that tune in here each and every week. May it be live here, may it on YouTube, or may it be live on X, or may it be through the podcast services around the globe. And we've been growing this year a lot on Spotify and Apple Podcast especially. So we thought, okay, how can we include this community into our podcast? And obviously we can't bring in hundreds of people in the podcast. So we figured out, or we thought, let us do a tournament style. So what we are going to do is we are basically doing a tournament kind of thingy, and you guys in the chat and everyone who participates here live can and will be able to push the different games in a tournament forward, and with that we get hopefully a good evaluation about what have been the best games in 2024. And to start off, we need 16 participants. This is basically how the system is going to work. First of all, guys, very easy thing to do. You're gonna have to do something else a little later in the show, but for now, we just need the best 16 games. You can drop them in the chat simply. What would you include? And I'm gonna switch, by the way, the overlay real quick, so you guys can. This one. Dutch, what would you include in the best 16? I mean,
yes, the best 16 of 2024. So it was obviously there is a lot to choose from. Same with indie games and AAA games. There is so many games, but what ultimately what we're boiling it down to is the popularity of the game itself, how good the game was received, how we received that particular game. And its overall success in the market as well. There are so many games that could have been chosen from to go into just kind of six, especially on indies, because we'd be here all day if we were talking all of indies. Well. So ultimately, we've boiled it down, at least narrowed it down into a select few. So there's obviously no doubt one of my games of 16 games is Visions of Mana.
Okay, since I'm fully with you, we just put that in. We have Pyro in the chat who is strongly in favor of Infinite Like a Dragon. We can put that in. You guys, Dan Heffron asks, how many should we name in chat? Just drop them in, man. Just drop them in. We're gonna probably end up with a united idea of what are the 16 best games. Desi Baby in the chat says, of course, and I agree here. Final Fantasy Rebirth. He also named 16, but 16 wasn't a 24 game, so we can't use that. But Rebirth, I fully agree, should be in there. We just put that in, and Indiana Jones, of course. I think everyone should be able to agree here.
We have to put Helldivers 2 in, because ultimately, if we have a look, I haven't played it myself, but if I have a look at its impact on PC and its impact on PlayStation, and everything that came from that game, it was absolutely one of the games that deserves to be shouted for, I think.
Absolutely. I agree. Let us put Helldivers 2 in there as well. Guys, this is just a warm-up round, right? I think with 16 games that we can choose from, we have a lot of things. Xbots in the chat says Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. We already have that in. Yeah.
Yeah. I think round of 16.
That's the round of 16, right? So Dan Heffron, Banishers. Oh, I'm so happy he mentions that, because that most certainly deserves to be in there. Indiana Jones, he says, is already in there. Prince of Persia. That was one hell of a game, man.
It's one hell of a game, but for the round of 16.
Yeah, absolutely. It's honestly, Prince of Persia is probably even in my top 5 this year. My personal. So if someone else is in favor of Prince of Persia, type it in the chat, because then we absolutely gonna put it in there.
We have to put Balatro in.
Balatro. I've seen that in the chat as well. Yeah. Balatro.
Addicted people if we did not include Balatro.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of addicted people for that game.
Yeah. I agree there. So I need to pause the chat real quick here for me, because they are going too fast, which is awesome. Don't stop them coming. Luke in the chat. Great to see you, by the way, brother. He says his top 10 not ordered were Astrobot, 1,000 times Resist, Silent Hill 2, Final Fantasy Rebirth, Never, Indica, Hellblade 2, Indiana Jones, and Veilguard. There's plenty of good stuff. I mean, Astrobot, we could put it in the best 16. It was a good game, and I agree on Veilguard. That's why I think we should put that in as well. Hellblade 2 has been mentioned a few times now.
Yeah.
We could put that in. We still have a lot of...
Space Marine 2, we've got Stalker 2, we've got Palworld.
Palworld. You think that needs to be in there?
I can't see why it wouldn't be. It was unbelievably successful when it launched. Like, significantly more successful than anybody thought it would be. And it's had multiple major updates since its release, and one is dropping this year as well. So I don't see why not. But there's so many games to fit into a 16. How many we got already? 2, 4,
that's
6,
true.
8,
So
10. We've got 6 more to put in here, so we're gonna have to.
Yeah, we kind of have to. I mean, we can take them out, before, because the tournament hasn't started yet. So, Siki says Palworld is early access, though. Yeah, but I would say it's similar like Path of Exile 2. It counts because it feels like a complete game, right? Path of Exile is something I would put personally in, yeah. So, but I don't want to overvote the community here. What else? Give me a second, guys. I see arguments that in the chat from Ballantone and others for Dungeons of Hinterberg.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout for an indie. It is.
Yeah. Metaphor. A lot of people say Metaphor. We kind of need to put Metaphor in there as well.
It's too big of a hit not to, and I would think Black Myth Wukong, of course, as well. Was too big of a hit not to include in that.
Now we're getting crowded, man, because I see also a lot of people mention Space Marine.
Yes, I would also put Space Marine in there after finishing it.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So how many do we have? We have 3, 6, 9, 12. So we have 4 more.
Yeah.
Drawn TJ says Path of Exile 2 is way better than Diablo. Yeah, man, I'm now in Cruel Act 2 after, I want to say, at least 60, 70 hours. I think
for me, the story better than Diablo's story?
No, the story isn't better, but the leveling and the boss design and the way how the skill system works, it is.
And for me, that's one of my major things about when I vote for games or games of the year is impact of the story, especially with a story-based game. First and foremost, the gameplay comes second. So for me, that's how I weigh things up. How did the story resonate, and how much was I kind of locked into that story? Still Wakes the Deep is a really good shout for an indie title.
Ah, that's a good one. Yeah, indeed. So I see that this damn tier maker cut off some of the games we already have in there.
Sorry, we just need to see the top of it.
Yeah. But we need. So I love Outlaws as well, says BT Maverick. Star Wars Outlaws. I would agree. Definitely in my top 10 this year. Personally, but I don't know how the community would see it, right? So in case someone wanted,
was that this year?
Star Wars Outlaws.
No, Alan Wake 2.
Alan Wake 2 was last year. That was a 20. We are not doing that Keeley kind of way in how to count a year. We are talking January to December. That's why we do the Game of the Year show here on January 2nd, so we can count everything that came out in the calendar year 2024. That is definitely something. So how many spots do we have left? 3, 6, 9, 12, 4 spots.
Oof.
So I'm surprised that nobody mentioned Dragon's Dogma 2, because when Dragon's Dogma 2 came out, everyone was like, this is Game of the Year. Yeah. I've also seen the Keeleys voted Silent Hill 2 very high, and nobody has mentioned that. I mean, I'm not complaining here. Yeah. That's totally.
No one's mentioned Call of Duty. No one's mentioned Stalker.
Call of Duty has been mentioned. Hang on, I'm a little behind here. Tron TJ mentioned Black Ops 6 and Space Marine 2. We have Space Marine 2 already in there. So, all right, guys, what do we do? Four spots left. Pyro says Sea of Thieves released this year for PlayStation.
Silent Hill 2. I have spoken, says Luke.
Luke, I don't know. It's one of the few games I haven't played on this list here. Concord. Sith Lord, that's just cruel. Yeah. We have Hellblade 2, TJ. We already have that in. Siki says Stalker 2. I think Stalker 2 should definitely be. I feel like that should be in there, man. And because you've spoken so passionately about Pal World, I think we're gonna put in Pal World for you, my man.
Thank you.
So we still have a couple of spots left.
What about? See, he has a couple for people to consider in the chat here. So we still have Black Myth Wukong, Silent Hill 2, Ayuden Chronicles 100 Heroes.
Yes.
What else? You've mentioned Path of Exile. That's fine.
Yeah, Path of Exile definitely should be in there, but I don't want to overrule the community here. So, what do we do? Hellblade 2 Sith Lord is already in there. Flight Simulator. Dustin Lambert says also 100 Heroes. And Expert says Outlaws ripped all the stealth, and it's fantastic now. I've played it with the stealth and really enjoyed it.
Zeke says Silent Hill 2 is a remake. Let's not go the Keighley route.
Ooh, it's getting spicy. Black Ops 6 has been mentioned now a couple of times. TJ was the first Sith Lord, and a few others have mentioned that. I feel like we could also, like, it's TJ, that's true. So many damn good games. We make a short poll. Which games take the last 2 spots? And before we start with the final tournament thing, so we take Black Ops 6, we do 100 Heroes.
Yeah.
We do... What else? Dutch. Black Myth. And we do Path of Exile.
Yeah.
2. Man, I can't type and talk. So, the poll is up, guys. The last 2 spots, just give it a thought. Concord has been mentioned so many times.
I know exactly why.
Yeah. And then Heffron says, I think Boxenberger and I were the only ones who were for Prince of Persia. Yeah, that's unfortunately the case. But honestly, Prince of Persia was damn good. It was one of the best Metroidvanias in recent years. It played phenomenal. It was challenging, but never unfair, you know. And honestly, I think it is in my personal top 5 this year, because I really, really enjoyed that game. Pyro says, I know I was the only one here that played it, but I enjoyed Creatures of Ava more than Dungeons of Hinterberg. Yeah, I haven't played that. So
I haven't played it yet either.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we're not going to leave the poll up too long. Black Ops 6 is definitely something people voted for the most. So I'm going to close the poll. And with that, we have Black Ops 6 and 100 Heroes take the 2 final spots here. And where do we have 100 Heroes? So there we go. Now, I hope everyone in the chat is fine with those 16 picks to start off a proper evaluation of the best games. Shout out to a fantastic year of gaming. Yeah, we have not included now Black Myth, Dragon's Dogma, Path of Exile 2, for whatever reason, guys. Prince of Persia, Silent Hill 2, remake, Dungeons of Hinterberg, Star Wars Outlaws. The list goes on. But we kind of have to nail it down to 16 to kick off a proper tournament-like evaluation that we do with you guys. And now, Dutch, maybe while I put up the first thing, now you explain to this awesome community what we're gonna do now.
Yes, of course. So, like in many round of 16 tournaments, we will pit 2 games against each other. Of those 2 games, of course,
4 games. Four games. But the first 2 win. In the round of 16, we do 4 games.
Okay. We will pit those games against each other. We will discuss the pros, cons, what we liked, what we didn't like about each of these games. In the meantime, we will put polls up in the chat and allow yourselves to discuss your pros and cons and what you liked and didn't like about these games, and choose the 2 that advance from these 4. Each of those, of course, we will go into the quarterfinals once we've whittled them all down into their respective groups. From the quarterfinals, of course, we'll do the same thing until we get into the semifinals and ultimately the finals. Each round, you will choose the games that you want to advance. So we will discuss the pros and cons. We will not have any voting going on from ourselves.
We won't.
It's all strictly yourselves. We will simply discuss each of these games, and you guys choose who advances to the next round and ultimately goes into the final. So essentially, it's us to semi-convince you of the games that we think should go forwards, but ultimately the choice is yours, whether or not you want these games to advance and why you think they should advance.
Exactly.
We want to get your opinions in the chat as we go, of course. Vote along and have fun. This is the first quarter-final. We have Stalker 2. Sorry, we have our first round of 16. We have Stalker 2, Power World, Black Ops 6, and 100 Heroes.
Exactly.
As our first set of 4. Now, 2 of these games will advance. So the top 2 voted for out of this group will go on to the quarterfinal.
Exactly. So, what would you vote, man? What would you vote if you could?
That's a toughie. That is a toughie. I would not vote. I would not vote for Black Ops 6.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
but it's maybe that's the thing. I did enjoy the campaign. It was a really good campaign, like 5-6 hours, 6 hours. Maybe it was a little longer than the other Call of Duty campaigns, and it was a really fantastic campaign. But I'm not a big Call of Duty multiplayer guy. Yeah, so I'm not. I wouldn't vote personally for Black Ops 6. But I do get why people did enjoy the latest Call of Duty as much as they did, because it was most definitely one of the best ones in recent years.
Yeah, I agree.
Luke says in the chat, if Black Ops wins, I'm just gonna head out. Yeah, man. I feel like we should bring you onto the show, man. If you're free, Luke, if you're free, I can send you a link and you just join us here.
I'm the same as you. I did enjoy the campaign. It was a good campaign. I liked the premise that they brought back into it, which with the mansion and the upgrading of things, and that the campaign was cool. But ultimately, it's still just another Call of Duty for me.
Yeah.
Whereas games like 100 Heroes, for instance, with literally 100 playable characters.
Yes.
Literally 100 playable characters was insane for a JRPG. It was really well done, really well crafted. We waited a long time for it. Fantastic game. Great art style, great music, great voice acting across the board. Really cool. Stalker 2, of course, the work that they've done in order to get that game out, and as good as it is throughout what they have done and what they've been through, has been absolutely fantastic. Stalker 2 is a really good game.
Yes.
One of the ones I need to get back to myself. I played quite a bit of it, and then, of course, got really busy before Christmas, so I need to get back to it, but thoroughly enjoyed what I played of it.
I think I'm pretty close to the end now. Not 100% sure, but I do agree. Stalker 2 is, for all its flaws, and there are some, the longer I played, like, the shooting itself just feels a little clunky and rusty, and it's not like what you want out of a modern shooter to feel like. But the game makes just, or does so many things so right. First and foremost, the atmosphere, right? This is like an insanely good atmosphere, dense. I like the way that it's not an RPG. You don't level up through skill points or something, but simply by improving your own skills and your equipment, right?
Which you have to earn. by doing tasks or going on missions.
Exactly. I really do enjoy the story. I felt like in the beginning, like, okay, this is an okay story, yeah. But the more you progress, the deeper the story gets, and it's like you make some real tough decisions. And I'm really enjoying Stalker 2. So I would definitely vote for Stalker 2 and Black Ops 6. By the way, Luke is joining us in a minute. I've sent him the link.
Nice.
And we see also Mav in the chat, which is awesome.
Nice. And the one I would say, last but not least, of course, that we need to talk about is Pal World. But I do need to talk about that because it really unsettled the established order of things, and even ended up with them getting taken to court by Nintendo. True. For really ridiculous reasons, though, because it had nothing to do with the look of the Pokemon or pals that they use. It's to do with the game mechanic of catching things in a ball, which is obscene. Obviously, as a collective, as a community, we need that to be shut down. We need to be thrown out quicker than anything, because trying to hate game mechanic and sue people for doing a mechanic in a video game is absolutely obscene, by the way. Whether or not you've used that before in the past or not, it just prevents anybody kind of tweaking it or making something similar or making something their spin on things. It really hinders gaming as a genre if a company can go around doing that. But Pal World in itself did change things up.
It did.
Yes, it had the monster catching, but it also allowed those monsters to carry machine guns. It allowed you to carry machine guns and also build yourself a giant fort or multiple forts and go out and do adventures and go against boss battles. It was a big open world to experience. Like I've mentioned, they've continuously added more things to it and improved it over time. So shout out to Pal World as well for disrupting things and getting in there when they didn't think they would be so successful, and they have been. So
Agree. So, and Luke has joined us. I don't know if his mic is working.
Yes, I heard him.
Yeah. Hello. Hey, great to have you on the show again, man. How are you doing?
I'm okay, yeah. I was plenty of Call of Duty Black Ops slander in the chat, which is ironic. It's the Call of Duty I've played the most for like 10 years, actually. So, but I don't know. I don't feel right. in that 16.
Yeah. That is true. All right. Luke, it's been a long time since we had you on the show, so I'm glad that you could make it here so spontaneously, and we're gonna have a blast with you on this show.
Absolutely.
But before Luke's mic is a bit low. Yeah, I've increased the volume on my end as high as I can, but
I'll pop it up on my end.
Yeah,
that's better.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah, your tone's even better now, Luke.
So before we close the poll, we'll leave it up for just a few minutes and have our first two games in the quarter finals. Before we do that, I need to shout out a couple of super chats that came in super early in the show. And I almost forgot, and I always feel super bad if I miss one. So Sith Lord sends in a channel member chat for being a channel member for 29 months. He says, 2025, so many games, not enough time to play them. Oh yeah, 25 is gonna be crazy, and our backlogs will grow significantly that year.
Yes.
Then we have Rave Demos sending in a channel member chat for being a channel member for 42 months. He says, 25, so many great members of this community and more coming. Yeah, this community is absolutely amazing. And yeah, we hope that we can grow this awesome community in 2025. And then we have Pyro Matt, who just became a channel member. And big thank you for supporting this little podcast we have here. Appreciate that a lot. All right. So, Luke, before we close the poll, out of these 4, which 2 games would you personally vote into the quarterfinals?
Well, Stalker 2 for sure.
Yeah.
And probably it's difficult because I've not played Palworld and I've not played 100 Heroes, and I have played Black Ops, but I think I'd probably give it to 100 Heroes.
That would be, I think, my 2 picks as well, Stalker 2 and 100 Heroes. I absolutely loved 100 Heroes. It took me... I love JRPGs, but this one really took me by surprise. Yeah. This was so well done. But I think I'm going to close the poll for now. And
it looks like it's a pretty runaway result.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. So, with that, we have our first 2 contestants for the quarterfinals. I just moved them up. First, we have Stalker 2, right? And we have Black Ops 6. And with that, we, Dutch, kind of need to start the next 4 games.
We need to remove Palworld and 100 Heroes from there.
Yeah, we leave them in the round of 16 so that we at least see which games are in there. They just don't move any further. So which games should move to the quarterfinals? Which 4 games should we put in next?
Oh, let's do the battle of some of the Japanese games. So it's Visions, Like a Dragon, Metaphor, and Final Fantasy.
Oh god! Oh god! Dutch, you're gonna kick out our favorite game, Visions of Mana. With that, I feel like okay. Metaphor.
Let's be a little bit spicy. Let's be spicy.
Okay. Then we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and the 4th is gonna be Like a Dragon.
So Vision, Like a Dragon, Rebirth, and Metaphor.
All right. We're gonna put that up, guys. It's up to you to vote again. Which games? Luke, we're gonna go first on you. What do you think? Which games should move forward?
That's a really spicy one. That's you're really playing with fire with that one. I think for me, so I've played 3 of these. I haven't played Like a Dragon much. I've not played Visions of Mana.
Oh, you should rectify that, man.
So I should. It's on the list. Don't worry, it's on the list. I would probably give it to Rebirth and Metaphor, but I think there's a solid argument for any of those 2. So yeah, it's not as if it's super controversial whichever 2 win. I don't think.
It's a tough one. I mean, Visions of Mana is probably the most underrated game of the year. It's easily in my top 3 this year. It was just from start to finish a fantastic game. The story was awesome. Really good. They told a really, really good story that started very lighthearted, but then took some turns and then when you finish the main story, they have an entire proper epilogue that elevates the story even further. The gameplay was awesome. The combat system is fantastic and super addictive. And the world building was phenomenal. So I can't recommend Visions of Mana more, honestly.
Yeah. Yep.
Dutch.
What would be your second game then? What would be your second game?
I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I've not properly played Metaphor. I've only played the demo, and I decided not for me. So that's why I can't really say that. Yeah, Metaphor is for me. And I'm not a big Like a Dragon guy. It's too much cutscenes, too less gameplay. Not that big of a fan. But Rebirth was also a really good game that I thoroughly enjoyed. Worthy successor to the fantastic remake from 3 years ago 4 years ago. Dutch, what would you say? Where would you?
I'm in the same boat. Visions of Mana is my personal game of the year this year anyway, even having Space Marine and Indie.
This is getting me hyped for Visions of Mana, this discussion.
Like Goty said, it's fantastic. Like throughout the game, it builds up. You don't see everybody at the same time. Not all your party members are immediate, and everyone is fleshed out. So every one of the characters you come across is fully fleshed out with its own story and its backstory, and you get to play that backstory and see what happens. So everyone is fully fleshed out, and the big bad, as we say, kind of keeps you on your toes throughout the game because you're not quite sure who the big bad is until quite a chunk into the game, actually.
Yeah, I would say halfway through the game. It takes you halfway through the game before you learn who the actual bad guy is. Yeah.
Yeah. And even then it kind of switches things up.
Yeah.
Because who you think is the big bad isn't, and then post story, you see that guy again, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, this guy is a big bad. And that epilogue that you speak of is fantastic as well. And it just opens the game up even further and unlocks a whole new area you haven't played in before. And there's lots to do in it. It's just a fantastic game. So, I mean, Visions is my first to go through, and my second, much like you, is Rebirth. I thoroughly enjoyed Rebirth. If it wasn't for that stupid boxing game, I would have went for the platinum. But I'm horrific at the boxing game, so I just didn't bother.
I think everybody's horrific at the boxing game because the boxing game is horrific.
Whoever designed that, honestly,
it's awful.
I hope I have a sleepless night. It's horrific. Much like you, I've tried to give Like a Dragon and the Yakuza games a shot many times, and I know they're big fan favorites, but they are just not for me. They're really just not for me. I've tried so many times. And for Metaphor, I have not played it. However, I know it's very much, it's like a political, from what I've gathered, it's like a political anime JRPG. And the art style in itself, I'm not really digging it personally.
Yeah. The art style is something that really threw me off. It's also why it's so hard for me to get into the Persona games. Like, I actually do really enjoy JRPGs. My most played game this year was actually a JRPG, but it wasn't a 24 game. And that is Octopath Traveler 2. Loved it. Took me about 100 hours to beat that game and loved every minute of it. But this anime's kind of art style and metaphor and in the Persona games, I just can't get into that. Yeah, same. So for my two to go through would be Rebirth and Visions. Yeah. Good. All right. I think we can start to close the poll. Just since we have a little delay in between us talking here and YouTube, we just leave it up there for another minute or so. Get your final votes in. So far, this is a much closer poll than the last one.
Yes, significantly closer.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. So I think we can close that, and we have our next two contestants for the quarterfinals with that. And it's Visions of Mana. We're going to move that up, right? And we move Metaphor up.
Okay.
All right. So, Luke, the next 4 games, we let you choose.
Oh, man. Let's have a look.
So, Power World, The Uden Chronicles, Like a Dragon, Rebirth cannot be chosen.
I'm just going to pick at random, I think. So we'll go Space Marine 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Banishers.
Mm-hmm.
Balatro.
Balatro.
and Hellblade.
Hellblade 2.
Oh, this is a mix.
This is a tough one. This is a really tough one. All right, guys. Again, it's up to you to vote here in the chat. The poll is up. The early votes favor Hellblade 2 a lot. That is interesting. So, Dutch, we go first on you this time. What would be your picks?
So, out of those 4, I'm going to have to go with the 2 that I have played the most. I know you've raved about Banishers significantly.
Yeah.
And I still need to get to it. But I have such a backlog, I dared not purchase it. But I will at some point. My 2 absolutely is going to be Hellblade 2. Thoroughly enjoyed the story. Graphically, it was unbelievable. Audio work was unbelievable. The acting was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, start to finish. The combat was far more visceral and but more meaty, and I just enjoyed kind of what they did with Hellblade 2. So that would be my first pick, naturally. And second is one that I've only just finished, and it was just good old-fashioned fun. Fantastic cutscenes. It was running gun action, blood, gore, guts, bro dudes, and like full of armor and like really entertaining cutscenes, and just a great game. And I need to do the co-op missions for that game, but it is Space Marine 2. Thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I do need to jump on it as co-op and do some of those operations with friends to see the opposite side of the story, which is a good thing I like about it too. So in Space Marine 2, you play the campaign either solo or co-op, and you can go through the campaign as normal. And whilst you're doing that, you've got other Ultramarines that are doing the other half of your mission and carrying out some operations in the background. Now, what happens is in the operations side of things that you can play co-op afterwards is you can go in and play that side of the story from the perspective of those Ultramarines, or using your Marine in this instance. So it essentially has the same story running parallel, but from 2 different perspectives via both the main campaign and then the operations. So I like how they've done that to kind of provide a little bit more to the game in itself. So fantastic experience, thoroughly enjoyed it, really well pulled off. Like another really beautiful game as well, really beautiful game. So yeah, Space Marine 2 would be my second one. Yeah, Space Marine 2 and Hellblade 2. Muted.
Damn it. It's a fair assessment. I would choose different games though, but Luke, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I didn't play Banishers. My wife did, and I watched most of it actually, and she loved it. She absolutely loved it. But I can't pick Banishers for that reason because I didn't play it. So I have finished Hellblade 2 and Space Marine 2, and I've played quite a bit of Balatro as well. So I would definitely give one slot to Hellblade 2. I think that's, as I said earlier, that's in my top 10. It's really, really good. Stunning looking game as well. The second spot's quite hard because I did enjoy Space Marine 2, but I really grew quite tired of it towards the end of the game. It's kind of one-notey, Space Marine 2, and that's absolutely fine if you really enjoy it, but I don't know, towards the end I was glad it was over. I think I was kind of like, okay, I'll move on. And Balatro, again, I mean, maybe that's one-notey for some people as well, but for me, I could go back and play that quite a lot. So I'll probably go for Balatro, actually. I'd probably just pick Space Marine 2.
This is an interesting one. I have played all 4 of those. I haven't finished Space Marine 2 though, because I just started it yesterday and I'm early in.
See, this is my thing, Luke, and I want to just kind of interject on that. I think
Yeah.
I'm glad it was as long as it was, and I think it didn't outstay its welcome. I think it was just about right. I think any
that's fair.
longer,
would have
I agree
been.
with you.
Yeah, 100%. I also
same throughout every level, but it was just a kind of continuation of the story, but you're just doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think as well. I played it, I think, on the highest difficulty, and it became very frustrating towards the end, which I think has soured my experience. And that's mainly because I played it solo, and the friendly AI is absolutely dreadful.
Yeah,
it's awful. So it's just you basically, and they've ramped up the difficulty, for free people, but it's not free people if you're playing on your own. It's you and two dumb AI. So I think that probably soured it a little bit, but I think that's fair.
Nice.
So I'm only like maybe 4 hours in Space Marine. Really, really enjoying it so far. It's a great game. But since I haven't finished it yet, I wouldn't give it my personal vote. I do agree with you guys on Hellblade 2. I mean, Hellblade, from its technical achievement alone, is so impressive. Not just the visuals, but especially the audio design. It just stands out. I also really did enjoy the story. My only criticism, I've said that before on this show, is since it is such a super short experience, it didn't even take me 6 hours to finish it. I think 5.5 hours or so was when I clocked in. It's kind of hard to grow attached to the game, If you spend like 15 hours in a game, the characters grow on you, the world and everything that kind of grows on you. And this game was awesome from start to finish, but it was just a super short experience. And with that, it didn't stick with me as much as other games did. When I finished Dragon Age, for instance, after, I don't know, 40 hours or 45 hours or something like that. Yeah. You kind of grew attached to all the characters and to the world and everything. And that's why such a game sticks with you after you finished it. And I didn't have that with Hellblade 2 that much. But nevertheless, it was a great experience. So I would definitely vote for it. And I would absolutely vote for Banishers here. Banishers was probably the biggest surprise this year. I did not have that game on my radar. And a good friend of mine recommended it to me when it came out and said, man, if you don't like that game, I'm going to pay for it. But it was worth every single cent. I so enjoyed the story. The writing was incredible, especially with the side missions. Like, there's barely any games out there where you feel like the side missions are absolutely worth playing, and they are so well written. And in the beginning, it was a little weird to get used to the combat system, like, because you play basically two characters at the same time, and you have to kind of switch in between them, and it kind of takes time to get used to it. But once you nail that down, the combat actually feels really, really good. I thought it was a fantastic world that they built. It's not an open world game, but you have these open areas where you can discover side missions and certain things, and then eventually you move on to the next major area and so on. And that was perfect for that game. I would best describe it as a mixture in between Tomb Raider and God of War, the 2018 God of War, or God of War Ragnarok, like a mixture in between those two. And it was just a really, really big surprise, because again, I didn't have it on my radar. I didn't know what it was. I've seen maybe a trailer or so and just forgot about it. And then this game blew me away. So I can highly recommend Banishers. All right, guys. I think we can close this poll again.
Yep.
Or anything you guys want to add? We always have to give another minute.
I haven't given into the Bellatrix fad. I have not given into it. I do not intend to.
I mean, listen, but Bellatrix, it is a really, really addictive game. It really is. And I can totally see why people would vote for that. It is just a really well done card game. Super highly addictive. I played it more than I wanted to be fair. And it is a really good game, but it just doesn't stick with you like a story-driven game where you get attached to characters and the world and a story, and so that's why I wouldn't vote for it. But Bellatrix was actually really, really good. Still can't believe that this is a solo developer game. This is amazing. Yeah. Okay. Anything you guys want to add before we close the poll?
Nope. I'm good.
All right. Good. Then I'm going to close the poll. And with that, we have our next two contestants that move up in the ranking. It's Hellblade 2 and actually Banishers, which I really do like. That it just shows how good a taste our community has. I think the poll is really interesting because with 54%, Hellblade 2 takes the crown, which I did not expect to be Hellblade. That Hellblade 2 stands out of these four that much. And then we have a really close thing in between Banishers and Space Marine, with Banishers having 22% and 18% voted for Space Marine. Bellatrix only got 4%. Interesting. Okay.
The final four being Indie, Helldivers, Astrobot, and Dragon Age. Ooh.
So you guys need to give me a second to put up the last poll. So this is gonna be all right. Indiana Jones. Then we have Helldivers 2. Then we have Astrobot in there.
Yeah.
And we have Dragon Age. Veilguard. All right. Poll is up, guys. Again, it's up to you. This is... I mean, I know what I would choose, but let's see how the community is going to vote. Luke, let's hear your thoughts out of these four.
Well, 3 of these are in my top 10, so this is quite hard. Yeah, and Helldivers wasn't, although I think if I was ranking it, it would be like 11th because I really enjoyed it and still enjoy it. It just didn't rank in the top 10 because it was a really good year. Oh man, yeah. So I finished Indie, I finished Astrobot, I finished Veilguard. I think I would have to get. Oh, this is difficult, but I'd have to give it to Astro and Indie for me. Veilguard was excellent. I think it's severely underrated, but I enjoyed the other 2 games that I mentioned more this year. So yeah, I'd go with those 2.
You're muted again.
Damn it. Let's see if I learn throughout the podcast to unmute myself. Dutch, what would you say?
Yeah. The only two that I have played is Astro and Indie. That's not to say I don't want to play Helldivers at some point, because I probably would enjoy it and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And Dragon Age is one that I've been teetering on whether or not to pick up, and I keep getting told yes, and then sometimes then people are saying, I got bored of it at certain points, and for this reason, and so I've been kind of teetering on it. But ultimately, again, I just finished Indiana Jones, thoroughly enjoyed it. Grew up with Indiana Jones. I've seen every film. I've seen Indy live, the live action Indy at Disney World. I've played the game. I've played the old games and when they came out. And this was just absolutely fantastic. Troy Baker's voice acting was just almost kind of identifiable directly with Harrison Ford and the way he speaks and in these inflections. So it was incredibly well done. It was just like a really long Indiana Jones film.
Yeah.
Probably one of the better Indiana Jones stories that they've had in recent memory.
Yeah.
Which is really good. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a beautiful game. Really well done. Encapsulated everything that people that love Indiana Jones love about that series. So Indy's absolutely the first pick, and I've got to give it to Astrobot as the second one. And that's more for, I think, it is just again, on the fun factor, it is just a traditional old school fun platformer. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it really kind of shouts out to all of the historic PlayStation moments and characters and some of the big things that they do over on the PlayStation. And it is just a really good, fun, well-polished game. There's a ton of free content already come out for it already. Loads has been added to it. Just a really fantastic game. If you haven't played Astrobot, everyone who has a PlayStation 5 at least has played Astro's Playroom. And if you haven't played Astro's Playroom, go and play that to get an idea as to what you can expect from Astrobot. Because at least you get a good idea. But it's definitely my second choice out of those four. Astro and
That's fair. So I'll start with Helldivers. It was actually really good. My problem was I jumped in too late. I started playing Helldivers maybe, I want to say, a month or 5-6 weeks after it came out. And most of my friends have already moved on from the game. So I started to play with randoms, and it's just not as much fun. So I also dropped out fairly soon. It was a great game, though. But I couldn't vote it here. And then it gets tough in between. Indie is a clear pick. I mean, that's for sure. I think that's my game of the year. I so enjoyed that game from start to finish. Like you, Dutch, I'm a big indie fan, and the throwback, the nostalgia is just one hell of a drug, right? And Troy Baker voice acted a almost perfect Harrison Ford. Right, the story was one of the best indie stories told in line with the OG trilogy, which I still consider to be the best indie stories out there. And it, from a gameplay perspective, I really did like that they didn't go for a Uncharted or Tomb Raider kind of clone, which would be the obvious thing to do, right? If you do an indie game, you do a third-person action adventure kind of game in the veins of an Uncharted or a Tomb Raider. That would just make so much sense. So this is and I really did enjoy that they didn't do that. Yeah, the riddles were actually really good. I think it's kind of hard to do proper riddles in games. Often in games, I feel like riddles are either way too easy. That I remember playing Horizon Forbidden West, where you entered a room and there was like a riddle, but the first thing Aloy did when you entered the room tells you what you need to do, right? So it rendered it just useless thing in the game to have riddles in there. Then other games, they do them too hard and you end up looking up every other riddle on the internet, and that's also not good. And they just nailed that aspect, right? And so it turns out, I think I just had the most fun playing Indiana Jones this year. If I had to pick one game of the year, that I think Indy would take the ground for me personally. So it's a clear vote for me here for Indy. And then Astrobot or Dragon Age. As much as I did enjoy Astrobot, and I thought it was a really good platformer, again, nostalgia, right? This game just hits in every level with PlayStation nostalgia, and it's a perfect game to release in the year where you celebrate your 30th anniversary and just celebrate the rich history of PlayStation. And the game in itself was super creative, great levels. But Dragon Age just hooked me. I don't know really what it was. It was just, I did really enjoy the story. Most of the characters, the companions, were actually really good. But the highlight was the combat. I so enjoyed the combat. Maybe it was, I just chose the right class for me. But I so enjoyed the combat, and I couldn't put the controller down with Dragon Age. And I thought a lot of the criticism was about this one side quest in the game. There's one companion side quest where they kind of talk about DEI stuff, and the game got a lot of criticism because of that. But if you just didn't play that side mission, the game was in itself a great story, great combat, great world building, great RPG mechanics. I just had a blast from start to finish. So if I personally could vote in the chat, but we can't, or at least I can't vote, I would vote Dragon Age and Indie here. Dragon Age, I think if I had to choose my top 3 this year, I said that previously, obviously, Visions of Mana, Dragon Age, and Indie. Those are my top 3 this year. And so, yeah, I would have to vote here for Dragon Age.
Okay.
Ah. All right. We're going to close the poll in a minute or so. Anything you guys want to add to those 4 games? Because we will be revisiting them anyway, because 2 of them are going to move forward.
The only thing I said, I think I said originally about Helldivers 2 was, let's see what it's like in 6 months. Let's see what it's like in a year. At that point, then I'll decide whether or not I want to try it. It's all well and good jumping on a multiplayer game like that immediately, but you need to see whether or not the community sticks around first before you kind of jump into it sometimes. And it's coming up to its first year shortly, so we can see how things have kind of panned out and what they've added to it and what they've changed over that time. And I probably will jump into it and see what it's like and see if it's any good. But I wanted to kind of see whether or not it survived that initial kind of opening stage first before jumping into it. A lot of multiplayer games don't even last that long, as we found out this year with multiple multiplayer games. Indeed. Either not making it past the first few weeks or few months before they shut down and offline. So
yeah,
it can be a rough one, and I didn't want to spend money on a game that wasn't going to be there. So I wanted to see how time was kind or unkind to it, and it's so far it's done okay. So I'll probably pick it up and see what it's about.
Yes, that's fair. If you end up picking it up, hit me up, and then we can play together. But yeah, okay, good stuff. Luke, anything you want to add before we close the poll? Again, 2 of them, those games, we're gonna revisit them anyway. So
yeah, no, I'll save my my follow-ups for later.
All right, so I'm gonna close the poll, and with that, we have our 8 contestants for the quarterfinals, and that's a very obvious thing here. With Indiana Jones got 82% in that poll, and then Astrobot got 8%. Unfortunately, Dragon Age didn't make it into the quarterfinals, but that's okay. That's how it goes. Vin in the chat says, hit me up as well. Helldivers is awesome. Yeah. And Amish AI says, ReFantasio. Yeah, Metaphor ReFantasio is already in the quarterfinals. So we made it. Okay, we're going to change things up a little because we're not going to vote for games against... We do 2 at a time now. And now it gets. I can see the chat already. It's gonna be a tough decision. So, Dutch and Luke, everyone, you both can choose one game that we pitch against each other here in the quarterfinals.
I'll let Luke pick the first one.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go for Stalker 2.
Okay, Stalker 2. And Dutch, what game do we put up against that?
It's going to be really mean, but it has to be Black Ops. The final 2 shooters, really.
Ooh. Which game should move to these?
Semi-final. Yeah. Shooter for the semi-final. Who goes through?
Okay. I see. I don't know. We can actually really influence that now, right? If we do that, but let's do this round like that. Okay, guys, it's up to you in the chat again. Stalker 2 against Black Ops 6. So this early votes tend towards Black Ops 6. So the Stalker 2 fans need to come in here. Luke, which one would you pick here?
I picked Stalker 2. I think I have much more time in Black Ops, but I think as an overall product, I prefer Stalker 2. I think it's a really interesting, clever game. I was a big fan of the first one as well, way back in the day. And this just there's very few games that have the type of atmosphere and systemic gameplay in an open world like Stalker 2 does, and I think that's quite special. So, and Black Ops, I'm trying to be too mean to Black Ops because I do enjoy playing it, but there are many things that I don't like about that game as compared to only a few things that I don't like about Stalker 2. So it would be Stalker 2. It's also a very, very good looking game, Stalker 2.
Oh yeah, it is.
Right lighting and stuff.
It absolutely is a fantastic looking game. Even on consoles, it looks really, really good.
Yeah.
And given the circumstances, how the game was built, right? I think it's close to a miracle that the game came out in the state it did. Yes, there were bugs and glitches, but nothing that made the game unplayable. On the contrary, they already fixed a lot of the things and issues there. And I do agree, the atmosphere is phenomenal. I also appreciate that they didn't go into the mainstream way to build the game, because they could have easily Far Cry'd this game, right? But they chose not to. And that's a real risk in the year 2024 to do that. and to stick what made the original trilogy so good. Yeah, it really feels like a proper continuation of that OG Stalker vibe. And yeah, so I would also go for Stalker 2 here. What are your thoughts?
I'm exactly the same. Exactly the same. And it's for, I think it's the way they've crafted the world. And again, yes, it came out. It's not perfect, granted, but neither was Black Ops. Stalker 2, there was one that I couldn't progress from a certain area because a character was blocking the doorway and he would not move. So I couldn't get out of that door to do anything. So I had to revert to a mildly earlier save. Thankfully, it was only like 10 minutes back. So it wasn't like horrifically too far back. And that, of course, would have frustrated a lot of people. That kind of stuff really didn't bother me. Thankfully, that type of stuff, I think, is getting patched. And occasionally NPCs did literally just get stuck indoors. So that was the only bug I realistically come across in my time playing it, which is good. Outside of that, I just loved the way that the world was crafted. And it was very much here's the main storyline. You can follow that main storyline. If not, you can kind of just do what you want. You can go and take on side missions. You can just go and explore. It was worthy exploring. However, you need to be careful because they can just be rogue kind of groups of mercenaries kind of just wandering around the wasteland that you'll get into random firefights with, or random mutated beasties that you'll come across that you just need to either gun down in their hordes or escape. And of course, your weapons, you're not infinite ammo. You have to be careful. You have to think things through. You can't just engage in a firefight hoping that everything's going to be sweet, because you could quite easily run out and be in a world of shit.
Yeah.
So I just liked that premise on Stalker 2 more than Black Ops, which is essentially, it was a really fun Call of Duty. I'm glad the campaign was getting back to its best levels, but I have to give it to Stalker 2. It's just in the sum of its parts, there's more to it than there is Black Ops.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it looks like the chat is also agreeing. So far, Stalker 2 is ahead of Black Ops 6. We're going to leave the poll up for another minute or so before we close it. I mean, Black Ops 6, like you said, the campaign was actually really, really good. I like that they changed things up a bit with, I forget how the mission was called, where the horror level, where you had a real creepy feeling, like almost like in a proper horror game, which was totally surprising to see something like that in a Call of Duty campaign. But
it was really good, actually, that section. It reminded me again of what was that? That's Condemned with the dolls.
Yeah,
the mannequin.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, not this again.
Yeah.
No.
So I thought that was really, really good. But I'm not a big Call of Duty multiplayer guy, so it was for me basically the campaign, which I really did enjoy. And if I compare that to Stalker, it's just Stalker 2 is the game for me to vote here. But okay, let's close the poll. The community has voted, and we move Stalker into the semifinals. Interesting. So we have Visions of Mana, Metaphor, Hellblade 2 Banishers, Indiana Jones, and Astrobot. Pardon?
I think we have to have the Japanese games go against each other again.
Yeah, I mean, the Sith Lord in the chat already said that actually the games are in a really good order here, right?
I might, you know what it is? I'd be inclined to maybe switch them around and put India against Banishers.
Yeah, you just want to annoy me, right?
Yeah.
You just want to annoy me.
If you really want blood, it should be Indy versus Hellblade.
Oof. That's also...
Make people choose between their children.
No. I was just making boxy cheese between these children.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I think the Japanese combat now is good. But people in the chat, let us know which games do you want to have next after this first this upcoming poll. Which battle do you want to see? Do you want to pitch Banishers against Indie or Indie against Hellblade? Let us know in the chat. But for now, I need to put up the poll.
The battle of the
Visions
Japanese
against exactly. So you guys have to talk really quick while I put that up.
This is going to be a really tough one because I know me and you hyped up Visions a lot.
Yeah.
But I know fan favourites, a lot of people love Metaphor as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this one pans out. I don't know. I literally don't know which way this will go.
I have no idea. Poll is up. I mean, I think the problem is probably a lot more people have played Metaphor than Visions of Mana. So there's definitely an advantage there. Luke, what would you choose?
Yeah, I'm in that camp. I've only played I haven't even played Metaphor a lot. It's on my backlog, which I'll get to soon. So for me, it would have to be Metaphor, but that's just because I've not played Visions at all. So it'd be interesting to see if anybody's played both of them and finished both of them, which I think, I don't know, it's probably like 7,000 hours between both games, isn't it? So
yeah.
But yeah, if anybody has, that would be really interesting to see what they which one they would go for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is true.
It's super easy. I can sing the praises of Visions all year long, and this is for someone who came into Visions having never played a mana game in my life. Never played a mana game in my life. Boxy, on the other hand, had played every one of them, and he was like, "You have to play Visions. Try Visions. You're gonna love mana."
Yeah,
the mana series is fantastic, and obviously seeing Miles Dompier being an avid fan of the mana series as well. And I was like, you know what it is? I'm going to give it a shot. I played the demo. I loved what I played in the demo. It seemed pretty straightforward, and then it just like really took over. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And like I say, I've actually only got a couple things left to do in that game to get the full 1,000 on it as well. I just haven't been back to yet. To find all the characters and defeat the post-game boss on ultra hard mode or whatever it is. It's like one of the last things I need to do. So you
haven't beaten the dragon, or?
I have, just on not on the top difficulty, which requires you to do in order to unlock that.
Yeah. So for me, it's in this case
for that final boss on the game, you need to have like the perfect build, because he just wipes you out if you don't. He like literally takes forever to kill if you don't have the right build for it. Forever.
Yeah. That's true. This in the epilogue, the last boss really is a pain in the ass.
Yes, yes.
That's true. So it is interesting. It is very close here now in the chat. Visions is currently ahead of Metaphor, but it's really close. And Big Mad Mo says Metaphor is better than Visions.
This is robbery.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, there's still a few votes to go.
A few more votes to go, indeed. So we leave the poll up for another minute or so. Metaphor. I mean, I played the demo, and actually the demo was quite long. It was like I want to say 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
Something like that. But it just didn't click with me. This again, we talked about this earlier. This anime kind of style, art style, just not for me. And then it felt like you are playing an anime series and not a proper game. But yeah, Visions of Mana. We haven't talked about the music, how good the music in that game is. Man, I have to speak up here a little for Visions because, boy, what an epic score in that game. That I think you would agree, right?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, but Metaphor though, its soundtrack is incredible.
Yeah, I've heard good things about the soundtrack and Metaphor as well. To be fair, even if I didn't like the game itself. And again, it's not because I wouldn't like the combat or anything, because I like turn-based RPGs. That's my bag. I'm more inclined to play a turn-based, like an ATB style turn-based RPG than I am an action RPG. If someone was putting it in front of them, would you rather have Final Fantasy IX remade in an ATB turn-based style game, or maybe it's a little bit like Expedition 33 is trying to do? Or would you like it to have an action RPG? I would say the ATV style. On that note, it's more just the setting for me. It's the setting and the art style thing that's putting us off. I don't like what puts us off the Persona games. It's the same thing. This like schoolboy, schoolgirl kind of setup where they're all wearing uniforms and things like that all the time. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't want to do this. This is not me at all. This is not something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. All right. I think with that we can close the poll before someone else comes of the idea to vote for Metaphor, because Visions is currently ahead. But to be fair,
give it 2 more minutes because
we have a little delay. We have a little delay in between our discussion here and YouTube chat, so we kind of have to give.
People already get them in.
Yeah. So, and whilst we do that, I want to shout out the amazing community that joined us here today to do an kind of interactive podcast here, where we let you choose the best games of the year 2024. Appreciate you guys. If you haven't already, hit the like button. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We do this podcast not in this style every Thursday, but we do the podcast every Thursday. And of course, since this is a new format and something we haven't done before, let us know in the comments, also on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Let us know if you kind of enjoy this this idea of a semi-interactive podcast because it's something we could do occasionally, right? And if you do enjoy it and if it's fun for you, let us know. We would definitely appreciate a feedback here if you do enjoy this format. Yeah. All right, guys. But with that, I think I'm gonna close the poll because the next 2 polls are gonna be cruel. The next 2 polls are gonna be tough, right? Okay.
That was a very close one.
So it was a close one here now as well, with Visions of Mana taking 55% and 44% going to Metaphor. So we move up
1% there somewhere.
yeah. And now the question is, who do we put up next? So let's see what is the opinion of the chat. Very inhomogeneous opinion. We have Pyro who says Indie versus Hellblade should be the finals, so we shouldn't do that in the semifinals. Agent X-Force says Indie against Banishers. Yeah, he just wanna hurt me.
Indie against Banishers is my vote as well.
Yeah, then Heffron says Banishers and Indie are his number 1 and 2, so he wants to see them in the finals. So he would put up Indie against Astrobot. Any other opinions? Let us know in the chat, right? Guys, what do you think? Shall we do Indie versus Astrobot? And Hellblade versus Banishers? BT Maverick, Banishers can't go against Stalker 2 because Stalker 2 already is in the semifinals.
We might be able, if Banishers makes it to the semifinals, then of course we can have that discussion.
Yeah, if Banishers makes it to the semifinals, indeed, yeah. So, shall we do Hellblade versus Banishers then?
Yeah,
Luke, what do you think?
That'll be nice.
I still think it should be Blood and Indie versus Hellblade.
Indie versus Hellblade.
Let's do that. Let's be mean. Let's be mean and do the battle of Bethesda versus Microsoft.
Yeah, because I'm genuinely curious which way this would go.
Okay.
With the choice.
But then we keep that poll and we do Banishers versus Astrobot first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Banishers and Astrobot.
And then we'll leave the spicy one till the end.
Semi-finals. All right. Banishers versus Astrobot. Here we go. Guys, again, up to you. Poll is up. Which game should move forward? So for me, this is a tough one. I praised Banishers so much earlier, and I stand by it. It was the biggest surprise for me this year. But then Astrobot was really good as well. So, Luke, where would you choose?
Well, I mean, it'd be easy for me, but I haven't played Banishers.
Yeah.
So it would be Astrobot. But even, I mean, based on everything that I've seen of Banishers, I think I would enjoy it, but I think I would still pick Astrobot. So
would your wife agree? You mentioned
that's a good question. Yeah, because she's finished them both. I think, in fact, I think she played through Banishers a couple of times, maybe twice. But I think she would still give it to Astrobot.
Interesting. I need to think about this real quick. Dutch, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, mine would still be on Astrobot. And this is from a different perspective. I grew up, and the one thing I loved about Astrobot before that was I grew up on your Raymans. I grew up on your Crash Bandicoots. I grew up on your Spyros and every platformer and the Metroidvania that kind of existed, and thoroughly loved them. And Astrobot brought back some of those kind of, again, nostalgic feelings, platformers that you love.
Yeah.
And the way that it did it, very simplicity, but then it also had some more of its tough moments, like some of the parkour-y kind of jumping things where the platforms are spinning and you've got to really be very quick with your movements and your times to get through them. And those challenges are really good fun. So I think from a pure nostalgic point, even if Banishers was great, I would probably still, much like Luke said, probably still have given it to Astrobot anyway from that perspective.
Yeah, it's a fair assessment. Although, yeah, again, nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and it is. Astrobot was really, really good in itself, even if you take out the nostalgia. Great level design, a lot of fantastic ideas. They switched up some of the core gameplay mechanics in every level, and but Banishers, I'm gonna go with the underdog here, and that is probably Banishers, because the studio, was known for making like almost AAA experiences, right? it is just such a good written game. The writing is exceptional and absolutely stands out. I mentioned it before. The side missions are some of the best side missions I've ever seen from a writing perspective, especially in a game. And I was just taken by surprise by how much I enjoyed that game. So I think I'm gonna go with Banishers for me personally. We leave the poll up for another minute or so, and we need to shout out Pyromat, who sends in a £2 super chat and says, "Can you repeat the podcast format in June?" See earlier comment. Now I need to find the earlier comment. There it is.
Weird. I think you should do something similar in June with the new announcements, not on a winner way, but in a way to regards to what the community is most excited for.
Yeah.
Good shout.
That's a good shout. Glad you enjoy the format, because again, it's also new for us. We didn't know whether it would work, if it is fun for you guys to listen. So we appreciate the feedback. Keep it coming. If you do listen after the fact, just put it in the comments, either here on YouTube or on Spotify or Apple Podcast. We read those comments as well. And let us know if you do enjoy the format, and because like Pyro said here, it is something you could do in different ways for different things, not just for the game of the year evaluation. So yeah, good. Let us know in the comments. Okay, I think we can close the poll now. And now it's and with that we have actually Banishers in the semi-finals and Visions of Mana. Man, I did not expect that. I did really not expect that.
You know who my semi-final might be?
We're not gonna let you choose the semifinals. All right, okay. With that, we move on to a tough one. You can thank Luke. Yeah. You can thank Luke for that. Yep. Good. So, which game should move to the semifinals?
Hellblade 2 versus Indiana Jones. Ooh. This is our final quarterfinal round between Hellblade 2 and Indiana Jones.
I think Indiana Jones versus Astrobot would have also been very interesting, but this is gonna be super interesting.
Oh, so this is like between children.
Yeah. Since I already talked about this earlier, that Indiana Jones is probably my personal game of the year 2024. It's clear what I would have chosen here now, but I see that the chat is not voting as quickly. I see there's a lot of strategic voting now. People hold off with their vote to see where this goes. Interesting. Luke, what would you pick?
Yeah, I picked this, and it's actually a very difficult choice, isn't it? I would probably go for Indiana Jones. I think it surprised me more than Hellblade 2 did, and ergo it was more memorable for that reason. So I'm a big Indiana Jones fan anyway. But I was very surprised by Troy Baker's performance, which I thought was excellent.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that I enjoyed the gameplay as much as I did, because initially I was a bit kind of like, it doesn't look, I don't think it videoed well, that game, right? Like you watch it and I don't think it conveys how fun it is to play. and how expansive it is. So I very much enjoyed that. I think visually it's a very impressive game, although so is Hellblade 2. Probably the two best looking games this year.
So you would agree here with Digital Foundry? They've named those two as well.
Yes, I do. I don't agree with their ordering. I think Hellblade 2 is a better looking game. I think Indiana Jones is it can be particularly breathtaking, but it can be very inconsistent, I've found, especially towards the end. And I think like every frame in Hellblade 2 looks incredible. A part of that is just because it's a much smaller scope, and it's a much tighter game in terms of linearity. But yeah, I didn't agree with the ordering with them, but by the by. So yeah, I think it's indie. I really, really enjoyed Hellblade 2, and I think it's better than the first game in probably every conceivable way, except for me, the story isn't anywhere near as impactful. By kind of broadening the scope of the story and the ensemble of it, it kind of loses a lot of the personality that made the first game so memorable.
It's a fair point.
And the journey so memorable. Yeah. So I think that's the thing that drags it down. And I think Indiana Jones' story, you could easily put that up with the first 3 films in terms of an Indiana Jones story.
Yeah,
I think it's excellent. So yeah, so Indiana Jones for me. Plus the path tracing is it's very good. Very good.
It really is. It really is. It's one of those games where I'm really envious that you have the 4090, because I played it on my 3080, which is still pretty good, right? And it looks phenomenal with the path tracing on. But of course,
it's very demanding.
It's very demanding. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Siki in the chat says Indie could have won Game of the Year at the Game Awards if it wasn't for the release date and the Xbox tax. I actually do agree with the release date here. That's we've been Dutch and I don't. Yeah, we talked about this for a long time, that the cutoff date is just not good with the TGAs. I do get why they want to put it out in December, the award show, and therefore they have to have a cutoff date somewhere in the end of November, because the show needs to be put together and everything, and they need or want to do that before Christmas because it brings in a lot more money through advertisement and everything. But that shouldn't be the focus of an award show. An award show should honor all games that came out throughout a year, in my opinion. And for that, we've seen that in the past many times, that good games that come out end of November, beginning of December, just get ignored, and get yes, in theory, indie could be included in 2025, but it never happened before that a game that came out in December of the year before was included in the show, because everyone will have forgotten about it by then. That's just what it is. So, Luke, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole cutoff date for the Game Awards?
Yeah, I think so. I totally understand why there's the cutoff. I get it, and I get why it's held in December, because it's a much better month in terms of viewership as well to hold it in December. I do agree that I think that a lot of games are therefore quite unlucky, because if they release after the cutoff, the problem tends to be that by the time the next Game Awards come around the subsequent year, they're not forgotten about, but they're not really as focal in someone's mind, and so they end up losing out on nominations or potential nominations. So yeah, it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, because I still want the Game Awards to be in December. It's like there's just something that's nice about the end of the year and having them rather than the start of a new year, but equally, there are games that miss out. I think Jedi Survivor was another one of those, right? Or Fallen Order, one of them. Again, a game that missed out a lot But that's, I mean, you can't, without moving the show, you just can't cater for everything that comes out, I suppose. So
yeah, that's.
And one thing that Indie does have going for it is that it has a PS5 release.
Yes, that will actually be really beneficial for it, I think. Yeah, because it will remind people that it, it's in spring. It's in spring, isn't it?
Spring.
So
I don't think a month or date has been confirmed yet, but they said
but spring. Yeah.
Yeah, spring. Yeah, that's actually a fair point. That could remind people of the game. But then again, I think in 25 it's going to be really, really tough because you have such juggernauts. I mean, we all know that GTA 6 is going to win anyway. But even if you take that out, right, of the equation, with your likes of Fable coming, Ghost of Goty coming, and other really, really heavy hitters next year, 25 is gonna be a tough year for an indie that came out basically in December, even with the PS5 launch, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. We can close the poll really soon, just 1 more minute or so. But I think the winner stands here. Currently, Indiana Jones is leading with an overwhelming 89%, right? And only 11% go to Hellblade 2. Yeah. So I think I'm just going to close the poll now. Because I think there's
no coming back from that.
There's no coming back from that. All right. Okay. So with that, we have our contestants in the semifinals. We have Stalker 2, Visions of Mana, Banishers, and Indiana Jones that made it to the semifinals. And that brings up, of course, the question, who do we bet against whom? Which game against which game do we do in the semifinals? Let us know your thoughts in the chat. Guys, what do you think?
I think... Oh, God, that's difficult. Indie versus Stalker and Banishers versus Visions.
Indie versus Stalker and Banishers versus Visions. Interesting. Luke, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably go for that because it's kind of two first-person games against each other, which makes sense to me. So yeah, I think go for that one. That could just be completely chaos and do, I don't know, Visions versus Indie or
Kirby in the chat.
Esoteric choice.
Kirby in the chat says exactly that. Visions versus Indie. Then Havron agrees with Dutch. It is a tough one. We give the community another minute or so to put their thoughts in the chat.
Kirby wants pain. Kirby wants to see pain is what Kirby wants to see.
Yeah.
Indie versus Visions. Oh God, no.
Absolutely. Okay, so what do we do? You guys think Indie versus Stalker? Dan Heffron agrees with that. Kirby Louise is a different thought. Any other ideas from the community before we put up the poll? I personally also think Indie versus Visions.
Oh, God. No.
Dutch. I mean, I'm honestly surprised that Visions made it to the semifinals.
Yes, same.
Because whenever we talked about,
I think the chat did some strategic voting.
yeah. Whenever we talked about Visions of Mana in the podcast, I had the feeling that from what I read out of the chat that not a lot of people actually played Visions. So I'm really surprised that this is actually up there in the semifinals now. Studo says he agrees with Dutch. Yeah, and Pyro says at this point, wondering Dutch, how every they are picked in a V's, it'll feel like picking a child of yours for tribute. Yeah. So, okay, we kind of need to move the show along, guys. Shall we do your proposal, Stalker versus Indie, and then we have Banishers versus Visions?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, let's go for that.
That's regardless.
I'm a little hesitant because I feel like Visions and Banishers are two games that haven't been played by many in the community. Yeah, a lot of and now if you put, for instance, Indie versus Visions, you make at least sure that in each poll, because Stalker and Indie is up since they are in Game Pass, right? Probably a lot of people have at least played them. It's kind of tough to decide here.
Well, then if that's the case, then you have to have Banishers versus Visions because they're the least played games from the community. Which
it's also fair point. Luke
versus two games that they're most likely to have played.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. Plus, I mean, it's a what a Cinderella story with Visions or Banishers getting to the final.
To the finals, right?
It's hard.
Okay. And then I just listened to you guys.
We'll start with the painful one and we'll go Stalker versus Indie.
All right. We start with the painful one, Stalker versus Indie. The poll is up. Guys, it's up to you to vote. Stalker 2 versus Indiana Jones. And it'll be interesting to see if people vote strategically now. Very early in the poll, it looks like it, right? Indie 100% votes in the early. So, and Pyro says exactly, Game Pass day ones versus non-Game Pass games. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing now, right?
Oh, God.
So
the thing is about Stalker and Indie is they're so different of a game as well.
Yeah.
One of them is like round the world action adventure with a nostalgic figure that we've grew up on, and the other one is a post-apocalyptic nightmare in an exclusion
Sounds
zone.
the same to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very diametrically opposed in terms of what they, apart from being first person, in terms of what they are and their structure, and even their visual makeup and design, etc. So it's an interesting one. I think I'd always go for Indie though. Even though I think Stalker's excellent. There's very little about Indie I don't like. There are some things, and again, there's more about Stalker I don't like, but I think that's more on a technical front.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. So, and I accidentally.
I'd have to do the same. I think I'd have to vote Indie, and it is on the nostalgia front, but it's also on. I just thoroughly enjoyed the game and the story and the way the combat was and the exploration and the puzzles, and besides it being a very pretty game, it was just a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to going back and mopping up the side bits and doing all the mysteries and things that I didn't do in my first playthrough.
Yeah, I did all the side quests, all of them. I didn't go for all the collectibles. But yeah, I mean, Indie was just a fantastic and phenomenal game. Great atmosphere, great capture, just a great capture of this, of the essence of Indiana Jones. So, and I mentioned it earlier that Indie is my game of the year, so I kind of have to vote for that. But I want to break a leg here for Stalker 2 as well, because again, Stalker, fantastic game, and especially since it's not catering to a lot of the mainstream game mechanics that we see in these kind of open world games these days. Yeah. It's just very different than what the mainstream suggests you should how you should build a game, and Stalker 2 was just defying that, and they stick to their old school way of building a game, and therefore I can't praise it enough. It's fantastic. Yeah. So that was a quick poll here in the chat, because I'm going to leave it up for another minute or so, but it's kind of clear at the moment. Yeah, we have 84% on Indiana Jones and 16% on Stalker 2. I'm going to leave it up just a few more seconds, but I think there's no coming back for Stalker 2. But congratulations to Stalker 2 to make it in the top 4, right?
Yeah.
All right. With that, Ballantone says Indie will mob this. Yeah. It will be challenging for whatever game goes against Indiana Jones in the finals. So we have the finals. Okay, the finals are the next game for the finals is, which game should go into the finals, is Visions
Banishers.
Banishers. All right.
May the best person win here, Boxy.
I mean, it is gonna be interesting to see what people think here, right? I kind of expected Indie to win against Stalker, but I have no idea how the community would vote now. And the early poll is a 50-50 right now. So, Luke, what you haven't played either of them.
Yeah, no.
So what would you choose?
I think just on the basis of what I've seen, I would choose Vanishers, because I've seen far more of it. I suspect it's probably a game I would enjoy more, because I think, as you said, it's a bit obviously it's very narrative. Well, they're both very narrative heavy, but it's a bit kind of God of War-y in its structure and its gameplay, and 2018, and I quite like that. So I would probably go for that again, because I've seen quite a lot of the game. But yeah, I think your view is far more interesting than mine on this, because you've actually finished both of these games.
Yeah, I have. That you only for you. It's probably easy, right?
It is for me, because I've finished Visions and thoroughly enjoyed it, being my first mana game. And it's not to say that I wouldn't like Banishers, because I probably would. It kind of reminded me more on the gameplay level of kind of going into Evil West, when I think that was a very underrated game as well when that came out.
But I wouldn't compare it to Evil West. Nothing against Evil West. Evil West was actually really good.
I meant more along the lines of just being an underrated game that I think many people haven't or have overlooked. Banishers for that same reason. It's just one of those titles that kind of just went under the radar for a lot of people. And it's not for me, because you've mentioned it countless times, and I know I need to get on it and play it at some point. And I will at some point, but I just haven't. It hasn't really jumped out at us. I haven't had the FOMO to go and jump out on it.
Yeah.
And I will wait for a deep discount before I jump on that game. But I thoroughly enjoyed Visions, so it's obviously going to take the crowd for me.
That's fair. Well, For a long time this year, Banishers was my game of the year, because now if I look at my top 3, and I mentioned those earlier with Indie, Visions, and Dragon Age, those all came out towards the end of the year, right? And it was, I think, January or maybe February, can't recall from the top of my head, when I played Banishers, and nothing took the ground from Banishers until Visions came out. Because it was just an exceptional experience. But then Visions is just so good. I'm so glad you enjoyed it that much, because I really talked you into that game, I know.
Yeah.
And it's always a risk now if you buy a full-priced game, right? And just because from my recommendation, then you don't end up liking it, but you did. And you mentioned earlier, probably even Visions might take the crown for you personally against an insanely good game like Indie, right? And that just tells you how good that game actually really is. And it is with Banishers. I mean, it is tough to choose in between the two, and both of them would deserve to be in the finals. Focus Home did with Banishers something that they have tried multiple times throughout the last couple of years, where they try to move their let's say AA developers into the AAA territory. Yeah, we've seen it with Space Marine. You could consider that game a AAA game now, right? Banishers absolutely is up there to be considered a AAA game. And I think Focus definitely deserves recognition for that they try to push the production quality of their games into the AAA territory. But Visions is just such a magical world. It is like, and then of course for me personally, nostalgia comes in, being a Mana fan ever since the Super Nintendo days, right? And it just is hit every note for me. Fantastic story, fantastic world, super fun combat, lovable characters. There's just this charm of the game, you know. So I personally would choose Visions here, but it is a super close one, so we're gonna leave the poll up for another minute or so. Right now Banishers is leading, but only by 1 vote, so yeah. It's gonna be interesting. We have a lot of people in the chat that haven't voted yet, so get in there, and let's see which game could go up against Indie in the finals.
Yeah, the one thing I like about Visions as well is obviously when you're just picking a specific ability tree to kind of use, and you can choose many of them. They're like segments, whether it be water or fire or earth or wind or moon or stars or whatever it is.
Yeah,
it changes the armor suit that you wear and the moves and the weapons that you carry.
Yeah.
So depending on what you choose depends on what weapons are you carrying plus what armor you're carrying, and then that opens up a whole list of armor that you can choose from to put on that are specific for that particular thing, and each character gets to do that. So each character has like 6 different variants that you can choose from, and then weapons that go along with those variants, and all of them are different again. There's just so much choice in that game. That's why it surprised me. It surprised me a lot because of that.
And it encourages you to switch in between those different types of classes, because you can at any point in time in the game switch your class, and you don't have to worry about, okay, my armor is now not fitting anymore because the armor levels with you when you switch classes and so on. And it really encourages you to try out different classes that play really different, that play very different. So, yeah, the question is now, when do we close the poll? Yeah, some late votes I see. Those are the people that vote strategically come in. I'd say another 30 seconds or so, and then we're gonna close the poll. Right now, Visions of Mana is ahead. Yeah, with 55% and 45% with Banishers. So
that's just a 1 vote swing again.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right. Kirby in the chat says, stop the count, Mana wins. All right. I'm gonna do that. Because we kind of want to move into the finals, right? So a big congratulations to Banishers for making it so far along the tree, right? But we kind of move Visions into the finals against Indie. So, Dutch, I know this is going to be tough for you. Dutch, what do you have to say?
No. And it's a tie, guys, so I'll see you later. No,
we don't do ties. We don't do ties.
You know where it is. I'm sticking to my guns. I will still be picking Visions over Indie. That says a lot because I've got a lot of love for Indiana Jones. I absolutely adored my playthrough of Indiana Jones. Loved it.
Yeah.
It was really nostalgic. So to beat nostalgia and the feeling that gave, and such well acted, how shall we say, Harrison Ford Mark II by Troy Baker, as well as Voss, who was just an unbelievable villain. Really well acted all the way through. But every actor in that game did their part. It was just phenomenal. But to beat out nostalgia like that, it has to be something special, and I just couldn't. For the first time playing a Mana series game, I absolutely adored Visions, and I still do. So that's still, for me, that still takes the cake, despite Indie being there.
I can see that. I totally can see that, man. Luke, for you, it's probably a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, but it's a bit unfair from my view, just because I've not played Visions. But yeah, Indie would take it for this one.
Yeah. I mean, for me as well, as much as it pains me to say, because I really, really did like Visions of Mana, but Indiana Jones was just such a phenomenal experience this year. And in my opinion, it totally deserves Game of the Year. And yeah, you know what, Dutch, because you mentioned the incredible voice acting. Yeah.
I'm just looking at Scott in the chat there.
Balatro has been robbed.
Balatro has been robbed.
Yeah. You know what is funny to me, because whenever and we've had that in many games, right, in the past, when some English guy is voice acting a German, and then they try to speak German, and I'm sitting there and not understanding a word what they are saying. Right, in all the Wolfenstein games, the German, for instance, is horrible. But this time in Indiana Jones, they actually did a really good job, also with the German voice acting. Yeah, it sounded like it was voice acted by a German, and it was just. So it wasn't just the incredible acting of Troy Baker. It was the entire cast that did just a phenomenal job and made this an outstanding experience this year. So For me, it's Indiana Jones, and I see what in the chat, in the poll, that most of in this community do agree here. I think.
Shocked. I am shocked.
Yeah.
That India's won in this battle.
Yeah, I think totally deserved. Doesn't mean or doesn't take away anything from Visions of Mana, Dutch. I totally get your train of thought. And you're absolutely right. If you take out the nostalgia and everything, it's insane that Visions of Mana is still in the finals, right? And that is something that definitely deserves something, right? But yeah. So what did Untitled Games say here? I could switch
when he's saying.
Yeah.
So I've given the results from the first round for Balatro.
For Balatro. Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's the thing. So if I look at now, we leave the poll just up for another minute or so, but I think we have a clear winner here in today's podcast for Game of the Year 2024. But if I look at the tree in itself, this was a fantastic year for gaming, right? And even though if my personal tree would probably look a little different, with Dragon Age definitely being way higher up there, or Ayuden Chronicle being higher up there, it was a fantastic year for gaming, right?
Yep. It was,
Yep.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And again, there was so many, especially on the indie front, there was so many games that we could have included. But we would have been here all week.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, one game that unfortunately did not even make it into the round of 16 for me is Path of Exile.
And for me, it was still Wakes of Deep. That didn't get into the round of 16 either.
Yeah, that's fair. Luke, have you played Path of Exile?
No, I'm quite afraid to go down that rabbit hole, to be honest, because I will not be able to stop playing. So I'm gonna wait.
Yeah, it has that effect. That game is so addictive, so well done, and I know it's still in early access, but it already feels like a complete game, right? They included the entire end game. The only thing that they cut out for the early access is part of the campaign. The campaign actually has 6 acts, and they only included 3 acts. But other than that, the game is complete, more or less. Not saying that there are not going to be changes until it comes out, but yeah, it is a full-fledged game, and there's so much content in there, and it's super addictive. So I would have put it in my round of 16 for sure, but yeah. I think I'm going to close the poll because I don't feel like there is going to be significant change there. This is a clear winner for the World of Gaming Community Game of the Year Award, and the crown is taken by Indiana Jones, right? Well deserved game. I'm glad that we got to do this here today. I want to say, of course, again, a big thank you for everyone who participated. We, again, some feedback on that format would be highly appreciated, because it was also new for us, and sometimes we had a blast. I think I speak for the 3 of us here now, but it's more important that also you guys do enjoy the show, right? So let us know in the comments on Twitter or X or Blue Sky or on Spotify or Apple Podcast in the comments. How did you like that format? Is it something you would like to see come back? Did you say no, not for me? Give us some feedback. We would definitely appreciate that. But guys, do you have any closing thoughts on this amazing year 2024 in gaming? Luke, or Dutch?
Yeah, let Luke go first.
Yeah.
That's all right. Let Luke go first.
Yeah, I think I just echo that point, really, that it's been a fantastic year. I think it was a really difficult year in one sense, because it came off arguably, not arguably, probably one of the best years ever for video game releases. And there was, I don't think a huge expectation that it would get close to that.
Yeah.
And I mean, personally, I think it has. I think a lot of those gaps have been plugged in by some absolutely outstanding indie games this year, for me. But even in the AAA space, I mean, there's just been incredible titles released and a really good cadence for games this year as well, from everyone. So, I think it's been a terrific year, and I really enjoyed it. And there are lots of games that aren't on this list that are just tremendous. So,
yeah. Indeed. And this just tells you about the quality of the gaming year 2024, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Dutch, any closing thoughts on the gaming year 2024?
Yeah, I have to echo that. It was absolutely fantastic, and it's already great to see that kind of roll into a new year where it's already absolutely stacked with unbelievable games. But to get, again, to experience an indie game that actually hit the mark, which I think a lot of us were kind of wary on beforehand, but as soon as we've seen kind of some of it and then got our hands on it, it kind of laid those fears, and we all thoroughly enjoyed it. Experienced my first Mana game, absolutely fantastic. Then we got Hellblade earlier on in the year, and that was absolutely fantastic. Again, a little bit short, which is why it is what it is. Great and new Final Fantasy Rebirth there. It was absolutely fantastic. Euden Chronicles surprised significantly with 100 Heroes. Power World kind of blew up the atmosphere. Helldivers did the same thing. They both kind of went into the atmosphere with their engagement initially. Across the board, though, we've had an absolute mountain of games that have taken the world by storm, including Scott Balatro, which I know is a fan favorite among many, just unfortunately weren't in this chat at voting time. Snooze, you lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was so many that we missed out of this as well. Like I say, that should have been in there. That could well be in there. And next year, like I mentioned, we've got kind of the follow-on from It Take Two. As well, which is really high up on my list for kind of hyped games, because I just loved everything that Joseph Fares has done so far. So it's been such a phenomenal year. My personal kind of shout out to the one that didn't make the round of 16 has to be I mentioned them before and I've just completely went out my mind again. The oil rig one. The name's
Still Waits Deep.
Thank you.
Still Waits Deep, yeah.
Yeah, that has to be shout out for that. Mainly on the voice acting front, as well as just the story. The voice acting was phenomenal all the way through, and there's not any game that I've known outside of that to do full Gaelic voice acting. I mean, why would you? It's a nigh on dead language, but they've decided to do an entire game with an option to play the entire thing in Gaelic, which is phenomenal. So shout out to them as well for that. But yeah, it's just been such a great year, and I know it's going to continue into next year because the lineup we've got already is phenomenal, and we'll discuss that next week.
Yeah, we will. Since we don't expect any major news to come out over the next couple of days before the next podcast. We do want to do a preview for 2025. We will also do a little review of 2024, not games wise because we did that today, but there have been a lot of news, controversial stuff throughout the year in gaming 2024. We will recap that a little and then give, of course, an outlook towards 2025 next week. And of course, we'll cover whatever news comes out. I can't wait for that. Scott says the Switch 2 reveal is next week. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. That will be in February or so, but we shall see. We shall see. Anyway, this show has been a blast. For us, we hope you guys did enjoy it as well. If I look at this tree here and how the community has voted, we can definitely say our community has an amazing taste in gaming. It's a very interesting tree because there are some games up there. Never thought that Visions of Mana, for instance, would make it to the finals, or Banishers get to the semi-finals.
We were awfully mean in the first rounds, though.
Yeah, we were. We kind of
put all Japanese games against each other on the first round.
Yeah, that's true. That's also true. So yeah, but this community is awesome. We appreciate you guys interacting here and being part of the show. Of course, want to say a big thank you to all the listeners that do listen after the fact, either here on YouTube, of course, or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. We appreciate you. We hope you guys will have an awesome 2025. So yeah, guys, Luke, thanks for coming on. It was spontaneous, but we appreciate you taking the time and coming on here. It's been a blast. Thanks. We need to get you back properly for a scheduled episode, right? Mm-hmm. It's always a blast to have you on the show. Let everyone know where they can find you, man.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, as always, for having me on. I always really, really enjoy speaking with you both and telling people why they're wrong on their choices in these awards. But that's opinion as well. Yeah, no, it's that list is really good, really, really good, and I think a very deserving winner. At the top. So yeah, you can find me on X at LukeSteele90 and basically the same thing on Blue Sky as well. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks again for coming on. Again, it's always a blast to have you on the show, and we will definitely have you back a little bit more planned out.
Yeah.
All right, Dutch, let everyone know where they can find you and what you've coming up, man.
Yes. Of course, I'll be back next week for my first podcast of the year, with obviously the midweek mix-up, along with Boxing the World of Gaming, of course, wrapping up everything about our most anticipated games and the kind of what we can look forward to in 2025 so far that we know of. Of course, there's a lot of things that we still don't know that might release this year, that might not release this year, might get pushed back, and so on and so forth. Of course, we've got the Switch 2 that will be unveiled at some point this year, and of course, we'll have all those stuff to talk about. But next week, we'll talk about 2025 as we know about it so far and all the games we can look forward to and are most anticipated. And you never know, we might sneak some polls in there and do a little competition as to what their most anticipated is next week.
Yeah, you never know. All right.
But yeah, other than that, might also be doing, I've been speaking to General C, who's interested in getting back into podcasting, but might also be doing a different type of podcast alongside it, which isn't just about gaming, but just talks about anything that we're interested in, whether it be his love of writing and now art and things again, or could be talking about paranormal, it could be talking about games or movies or TV series, whatever it is. Basically just an all-rounders podcast. So
nice.
We're also going to get that set up. So we'll have two. That'll be a little bit of an off-the-cuff. Maybe it's on a weekend, on a Sunday evening or something like that.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Sweet. So as soon as you guys have settled on a date, we will definitely need to announce that here in the show.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. Good stuff. All right, guys. So again, a big thank you to everyone who tuned in. Big thank you to everyone who listened after the fact. We see you guys next week. And don't forget to game on.